Welcome to the InterCellar POD, where we get below the surface and help you build a foundation of hope, one conversation at a time. My name is William.
And I'm Annie.
And today we're talking about movies, shows, and...
Journaling.
Oh. All right. So, movies and shows. So, we were talking about this briefly before and kind of what direction we're going at. We were thinking like favorite shows, whatnot, and then I was like, well, what if we talk about just shows, movies in general a little bit? So
it is cold outside. It's the cozy season for watching shows in the evenings. With hot chocolate, tea.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there's a lot of different directions that we could go with this conversation. We could go down the whole route of like what's right, what's not right, or like da 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 da. Or you could go down the route of more shallow, like just what you enjoy. Here's a question for you: what do you like to get out of a show or out of a movie? Like, what are you hoping to get out of it? Because I think that changes kind of throughout your life a little bit. Like, I definitely went through a season where everything was like an action movie. I had to watch an action movie. And I guess, like, I just wanted to get out of it that excitement, which, I mean, looking back is kind of shallow. And I definitely nowadays, like, I need something more than just action. Like, if the movie or show just has action, it's kind of like, okay, like, why did I watch that? Which is definitely different than maybe when I was a little bit more shallow and when I was younger or something. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on the day. No, like, because sometimes, like, sorry if this is TMI, but like sometimes women with our cycles, there's just a time where we like just want the comfort of like the show that we've always liked, or like for me, that's like Heartland probably, or Gilmore Girls, where it's like just comforting because you've seen it lots of times, and it's like it feels like the home show, like where you just feel at home. But then there's other times where I'm like, I just could really use some inspiration, and so then I'm going for like a war room or an inspirational movie where the main character has like a crazy story and then they come out on top. I love underdog stories. But I feel like it depends on my mood, but I think what I'm always underlying, I'm always looking for something that I'm going to feel good about watching it afterwards. And we've definitely had times where we thought the movie was going to be really good. And then we watched it and we were just like, we just wasted 2 hours of our lives.
Yeah.
And both of us are pretty sensitive to that. Like, because it just feels like time is precious, and especially our time together, because having a baby now. And so it's like, if we're going to sit down and watch a movie, it better be good. And so when we're done and it was like, that was not good at all, we both feel annoyed.
I'm going to jump in here to add to this point. On our honeymoon, the internet did not work. Like super nice cabin. It was great. Internet did not work. So we like got a temporary like library card, or it was like an out-of-state library card so we could rent movies.
It was like $5 or something.
But then there was also like, that was like a later thing, because before that there was some movies that were provided like in the Vrbo or Airbnb or whatever it was, which is super nice of them.
There was DVDs,
So we watched this movie that's about a fat camp or something.
Oh my goodness.
I'm pretty sure I've been traumatized.
Ever since then.
There
was times in that movie where I thought it couldn't get any worse, and then it did.
It did. I forget
what
the name.
What is it called? Everyone's
going
to be like,
I forget
seriously?
the name of the actor. It's the same guy who plays Ant-Man. And he's just like
lean
this.
Over to me a little bit. You live with a long-haired wife, and you have a beard, and sometimes
it gets in there.
Yeah.
So anyway, in this movie, he's like this psychopath, like.
Didn't he used to be fat, the instructor, and he like whipped himself into shape,
and so then he's like this super extreme macho guy, and he like buys out this fat kids camp. So it's supposed to be like this camp where like the kids get together and it's
And
like
they all think that they're coming to like a sweet camp where like they're gonna learn about health, right?
yeah, and like kind of be around like instead of being the fat guy around like a bunch of like other people, then you're like kind of around people that are also struggling with similar things. And then anyway, that's the idea of like this sweet camp that people have fun, like whatever. But the main character kid is already like he kind of got like rused into being there. Like he didn't realize what kind of camp it was, and so he's already kind of upset. But then like this guy comes in and he's gonna turn the camp into like a show about getting
It is.
healthy or something.
Yeah.
But it just gets weirder and weirder.
And like you want to
and
cry for
weirder.
these children that are at this camp.
Yeah.
Like, it is the worst, most traumatizing camp for kids. It has not helped them at all. And then one of the instructors in the end, isn't this kid finally like, I just cannot do this and I'm probably just gonna be fat. And one of the instructors was like, "It's okay, me too," or something.
Yeah,
at
something
the end.
like
And
that.
we were
Which is
just
like,
what?
Is this the no? Okay, there was
Some kind of
there was
redeeming
some
thing
kind
at the
of
end,
redeeming thing because
but I
they
can't remember what it
basically-
was.
I think that like the one like kind of aside main character like counselor or whatever finally is like no, like
It's not okay.
it's
Yeah,
not okay. Like
yeah.
we're gonna
He was the original counselor, I think, and this guy
Yes.
that wanted to make the show came in and like took over and made it horrible
Right.
and traumatizing. And at the end, he's like, the original guy is like, no, we are
Right.
gonna take this back,
Yeah.
basically. But yeah, moving on from that traumatizing.
yeah, that was
movie.
traumatizing.
But it was
The
funny.
parents eventually show up and are equally traumatized at like what in the world is going on, and then anyway, so
and
it
this was like our honeymoon, so it was like
We're just like, what is this movie? Like, please. And you keep watching because you're like, it needs to redeem
I'm sure
itself.
it's gonna get better.
It just
No, it did not. Don't ever watch it. If it says anything about fat camp, do not watch it. Just
Yeah.
don't. Save yourself.
Yeah.
But we watched a lot of movies on our honeymoon because we were like in a cute little cabin and we went to the library and it was like in the hills in the mountains and it was
It was
like at the
very
base of
fun.
a hill. We went
It was
and like
very
picked
fun.
out movies. That was so fun.
Okay, the one movie that was kind of sweet about the twins that was kind of sweet.
Did we watch the Parent Trap or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, we watched The Parent Trap. Isn't that where the two girls like look the
Mhm.
same and then they figure out they're sisters?
Yeah.
I want
it
to
was
watch
a very
that
sweet
again.
movie,
That
actually.
was very sweet.
Yeah.
Did we watch a Disney movie? We watched like Frozen or something.
I don't know. I don't remember.
And we watched Harriet. Harriet is such a good movie.
Oh,
I really
yeah.
enjoyed that movie.
That was really
I
good.
actually did a report on Harriet when I was in elementary school, and so I was very.
I thought that that was very well done. The movie.
It was very well done.
Yeah.
It was very well done.
Yeah.
You could have taken it a lot of ways, and they did not. They really stuck to her story, as far as I know. I mean, yeah, from what I know of her.
So let's kind of change directions a little bit with this conversation. Talk a little bit about the balance between like, get over it, it's fine, it's just a movie, we can watch it, and being like, yeah, but what I watch, what I think on, like is important. And
It does
matters.
matter, yeah.
And so, yeah.
I mean, it shows in even the actors that make these films, because now I have not seen this movie, so I don't know anything. I know it was used to be like a Broadway show or a play, but the movie Wicked just came out from the musical Wicked.
Okay. I don't know anything about that.
And the two main actors before and after the movie looked very different. They looked like they had been through like something very intense and horrible. And like they just looked like the life had been drained out of their faces. Okay, so that's one example. The other example is Heath Ledger. After he did the movie The Joker.
Oh, yeah.
And now I don't know if this is like connected, but he ended himself.
Did he? 'Cause
After
I
that
think
movie.
several of the Jokers, if I'm not mistaken.
Did he do several movies?
No, there's been several different Jokers, but
Okay.
like we're kind of getting into the weeds maybe a little bit. We're talking about more like the characters themselves, but I think it does tie into the movie overall as well.
Well, that's what
and the
I was
heart behind
saying
it.
is like, and like I might have picked some extremes. They're just like what came to mind. But yeah, I feel like some of these movies where people like would just want to brush it off, like some of these horror movies and stuff, the
I see
actors
what you're saying.
literally were not okay after
Yeah.
filming those.
Yeah.
And so why do we think we're going to be okay sitting and watching them?
That
like
is a good point.
the actors themselves, and they're just acting, you
Mhm.
know? So like I think with the Joker, he had to like he like locked himself into a dark hotel room for like a long time, and he had to like get himself into the darkness of the character and stuff. Like it's just nasty.
Mm-hmm.
To me, there's absolutely no reason to watch that.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, it's up to you. You live your life, but what do you want? What place do you want your heart to be
Mm-hmm.
after you watch something? Do you want to feel terrified and filled with fear and like feel nasty afterwards, or do you want to feel inspired and excited and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people find like thrillers and stuff like that. They're like, it's okay. But even if it's cleaner, so to speak, if the reason you're watching it, kind of going back to even like action movies, like if is just to get like a feeling, you know, like that in itself is something to be like take into consideration. Be like, okay, like, is this all right? And on top of that, like, what is this filling myself with? Like,
movies can be an escape for sure.
it's
Like if you want to just escape and you just binge a show or watch a movie after. I spent lots of time in my teenage years doing that.
yeah, yeah, which is another side of things as well.
Honestly, I feel like movies and shows. I mean, Netflix's whole thing is to like get you to watch another episode or get you to watch another movie. We watched a movie the other night. It was like a 2-hour movie, and as soon as it ended, they were like loading another movie. We're like, what?
We're like
We just
digesting what just happened. It was actually
I was like, here's another movie.
wasn't it? Swing. This is my sword. I'm swinging. It was
the movie that we watched.
It was the one with the sword scene.
Oh,
The new one from.
Oh, The Forge.
Yeah.
The Forge.
Yeah.
It
was so good. And so we're
so
sitting at the end of the
good.
movie like, whoa, like kind of
That was
digesting
good,
that. And it's
yeah.
like, 3, 2, 1. Do you want to watch like some random like
2-hour
whatever it
long
was?
movie, and we're like,
we're like-
oh, we just finished that one.
So, yeah.
But both of us love movies, so we're not here to bash movies and shows.
Mhm.
We sit there and critique movies like old people. Like we're like, oh, I really think they could have done this better, or I think that, this
Yeah.
actor is I can tell that they're just reciting lines right there. We literally sit there and we think we're like pros.
Yep.
But The Forge we would highly recommend. It is
Yes.
such a
Yes.
good movie.
It was very good.
Very
well done.
well done. And they actually tied it back in with War Room. Like they
Mhm.
brought in some of the same characters. If you watch War Room, you'll like totally connect the dots.
Which
And so
part
that's
of me was like, oh
fun.
no, like that's going to be forced. But actually, it really worked. It
Yeah.
really worked.
So we should talk about the difference between I grew up not allowed to watch movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we did watch them, it was very rare. And it was like Anne of Green Gables or Winnie the Pooh or The Secret Garden. That's all I can remember watching. I think Dad let us watch. There was like Gifted Hands about Ben Carson, which is kind of like a documentary. He let us watch that. But like this was very rare that we could watch movies or shows. We never watched shows. So you grew up allowed to, but you had pretty strict
yeah.
I mean,
I think
you
that
say for yourself. I don't
from
know.
what I understand, like my parents and they so a little context, but basically my parents kind of were like the black sheep in the family a little bit. Like they were kind of starting something new. Like they were the first to homeschool, they were the first to do a lot of different things. And so they were kind of figuring out a lot of balances and stuff for them. And our family is now figuring out where we think with things.
Yeah.
And so growing up, like we were allowed to watch things. There was definitely initially there was a pretty good balance of like, well, I think there was always like a level of like, like shows weren't like the constant, except for maybe during the winter, there was like more shows or like on car trips or movies. I mean,
Yes. Did you have the little screen?
Yes,
it like
the
flips
little-
up and you put the little
Yeah.
DVD in there. Oh my word! I want one of
so
those.
fun.
Those things are awesome.
Yeah, the
We
little
would
DVD.
watch like the whole Anne of Green Gables 3 hours long on that little DVD player. It was awesome. Awesome. Rolling down the road in our safari van. We need to get one of those for Zadok.
We had
That is so cute.
we we had a whole bunch of, I don't know when my mom did this, but now I want to go and track them all down and get them all again. But we we had like all kinds of PBS, like early PBS stuff, um, like Mr. Rogers
Was Mr. Rogers on
and
PBS?
yeah, yeah.
Isn't PBS like weird now?
Uh,
Like, isn't
it
it? Didn't a whole bunch of stuff come out about
it's
them?
funny. Anytime I talk to another person, another um, like person my age about PBS, they're all like in the same. Like they're always like, "Oh yeah, I stopped watching PBS right around the time it started getting weird." Like that's about what everyone always
Oh,
says.
okay. So it did get
And
weird.
so like yeah, when we watched it, either literally like watched it or had tape recordings, it was
Yeah.
like Mr. Rogers and I forget the one about, man, I can't even remember the names. There's Clifford. There was Zaboomafoo, which now is Wild
Clifford.
Kratts. It's the same brothers. And there was, uh, I forget. There's the one where like they're all animals, but they kind of dress like humans.
So, like, what do you think was the pros of you being allowed to watch things and me not being like say
Mm.
like basically I guess tell me what that brought you as far as value, because everyone sits down and hates on kids having screens, but
Hmm.
tell like because your parents did a really good job of filtering what you watched as kids, I feel like. So like
To an extent, I think that
I
over
mean think like
time,
kids, not like teenagers. I'm thinking like when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, like
right? Yeah, well, I have two thoughts on it. I definitely they did a really good job when we were younger. I think like when we watched stuff, it was like very wholesome,
yeah.
and I really think that like and this is where like sometimes people are like their big thing is like books versus movies or whatever, and that like somehow if you read books as a child like inherently like it's better than if you watch shows. But we watched really wholesome shows and stuff, and I had more imagination and everything than anyone like that I knew.
So you would
And
say it's
so,
possible for kids to watch a show and the show actually encourage imagination
oh yeah, I
rather
think
than
so.
diminish it.
But
What are some
that
examples?
kind of content is so rare these
Yeah,
days.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
so rare.
yeah.
But like if you go back and watch some of those things, they're so rich with like, and they don't fill everything in. Like they leave area for your
Yeah,
imagination.
I guess someone who
Like
comes to mind who's not a show but like does this really well is Mark Rober.
yeah.
He does really well at like doing stuff that sparks imagination with
Mm-hmm.
kids, and then the genius of him is that he also has like the kits that he sends out to kids so
Right.
they can like recreate what he did on the video, which is
Yeah.
very cool.
I feel like him and some other YouTubers are
But that's
like
not
a
a show.
they are a new phase of that, like bringing back that rich, kind of rich content where it's like things got more and more watered out,
Yeah.
for a long time. And, but you go back, I mean, like think about Mr. Rogers. It's literally like puppets.
Yeah.
It's not like
You
super
have to
flashy
imagine,
and,
yeah.
and whatever. Like it's puppets. And I think he did all the voices for them too.
Maybe
and
the
stuff.
thing is that shows kept getting faster paced and faster paced and flashier and flashier and like more, so much going on to where kids are just like there's no wonder that they're like, huh,
Well,
at
and
the screen.
in
'Cause
general,
it's, like,
with
so much going on.
in general with movies and shows in general, it's gotten more watered down. There's less like, I mean, other than I would say the exception is Pixar, pretty consistently comes up with completely new things, like completely new ideas. And so Pixar's done a really good job of like each time they come out with a movie or something, it's like nothing like what was before.
Yeah.
But all of the other areas in Disney and whatnot, like it's just kind of like slowly like repeat, 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 repeat.
Yeah,
This worked before,
like let's do
so
part 2, and then let's do part 3, and then let's recreate
or let's
the
do
whole movie
another
and
one
do,
that's literally like the same movie but has different characters in a different setting.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah.
and
Disney's in the recycle
and
business.
and they're slowly removing like values, and they're removing like things that matter and thought-provoking things, like it just getting more and more washed out.
Should we hint at our dream of
I think we've talked about it a little bit
children
before.
entertainment. So
Yeah.
so we both love kids and like just I don't know. Like I feel like William could his dream, his icon, who he wants to be like is probably Mr. Whitaker from Adventures in Odyssey, right?
Or Jason. Mr.
Or
Whitaker or
Jason.
Jason.
Okay. So
Jason when
that's
I'm
like
younger. Mr. Whitaker when I'm older, something like that.
yeah, so like for him, like he's an inventor, he's a creative, like he loves creating things that get kids excited and like encourage their imagination. I love teaching kids. Like I love seeing the light come on and them understand things and like want to learn more. I love encouraging that desire to learn. So we want to combine forces
Yes.
and it's already in the works, but we have the company name and everything, and kind of like Mark Rober in a way, do the whole like video, but also have
Interactive
a
elements and physical elements.
elements that kids can be a part of. So
Yeah.
we are very, very excited about that. But I would say for me,
And from a Christian perspective,
of course, yeah.
It's one thing that Mark Rober unfortunately does not have.
He doesn't, which is sad. He could be a force to be reckoned with if he
Mhm.
did. But I would say for me, not having movies growing up, I am so glad I didn't, because I think just who I am as a person, I would say I would have probably been more addicted in a way, or like I just want to see it all the time or something. But here's what I'll say with that. If you completely starve your kids from something their whole lives, as soon as they leave your home, they're going to go for that thing immediately, because they're going to want to know what it was that they were missing out on. And so I'm not so sure it's a great idea to 100% not have screens in your home, because you've got to teach the mindset and give them the muscles that they need to deal with screens well as an adult.
Right.
So if you
Yeah,
just,
the
we're not going to do
self-control
it.
and-
Okay, well then when they get their own phone someday, or like you can try your best to give them a
They'll
flip
be
phone or whatever,
overwhelmed
but
by
eventually
they'll
they're
be
going to,
overwhelmed by the sensations.
Oh, yeah.
And the elements,
Yeah.
and they won't know how to be like, yeah.
yeah, I mean that applies to a lot of life. Like you just cut something out, you have no muscles to deal with with it. Like in a lot of the settings I grew up in, if someone's having a problem with what they're looking at on their phone, we'll just cut out the whole ability to even get to that on your phone. Well, that didn't take care of the problem. There's still a definite heart issue there, and there's brokenness and sickness there that needs to be dealt with. So you can't just cut out that thing and expect that to fix the problem. So I guess I'm kind of both ways. I did have some screens growing up, but not much at all. And what I loved about that is I read a lot.
Yeah.
And we listened to a lot of stories focused on the family.
I was about to say, I think we can both agree
Yeah.
that top notch, the king is Adventures in Odyssey, focused on the family.
Yeah, I mean, Adventures in Odyssey is
my
awesome, but the
goodness.
other ones from Focus on the
Well,
Family,
I
like
mean,
Little
yes,
Women,
I agree.
Secret Garden, The Legend of Squanto,
Focus on the family in general. Like,
Ben-Hur. I mean, I was obsessed with Ben-Hur, and I'm like 8 years old. Like, what 8-year-old knows the Ben-Hur story? Like, it was so good. And Lamplighter Theater, like, they are phenomenal. So, because there was a lot of rules, this can get really, we could go a lot of places, but there was a lot of rules about listening to music and what music you couldn't listen to, what music you could listen to. And basically, the music we could listen to was sad. So we listened to a lot of stories, and like our imaginations were huge. So yeah.
I definitely will take what I said earlier about like shows and all that. Like, it was good, and I enjoyed it, and there was definitely elements that were like, maybe that wasn't helpful, or maybe that was really good, or whatever. But I would throw that all out, I think, for audio, like, just because you have to picture everything. I think.
Well, would you for your kids though? Because our kids are going to have to deal with screens, and
No, I didn't mean like purpose. Like,
okay.
I just meant because the audio is so good. Because
it's so
like
good.
The way
We
that
still
they
listen to stories, and we're grown
Yeah.
adults. And like regularly.
I think that one thing that maybe I benefited from watching like various like animated and non-animated and stuff is that it was some of the like I'm very visually like minded, and so I feel like kids are different. Like for me, like that stuff really stuck with me, and I really enjoyed art and that kind of stuff, and so there was an element um of that kind of stuck with me that I really enjoyed, um and so I don't know, that's kind of a side thing. But what I was gonna say, kind of stepping back a little bit, is I feel like if you watch how your kids respond to things, what they do with them, and we're not gonna go into this whole topic right now, but even with games and stuff, like I responded to games and things different than like my brothers, and vice versa, and with different or videos, different stuff. So I feel like if your kids are flourishing with it, then like, and I'm not quite sure exactly how the balance is, because you wouldn't want to be like, no, you can't see that, but you can.
Well, but something we've talked about is like Adventures in Odyssey. It's not addicting. Like you can listen to an episode and you're like, man, that was really good. But you don't just like, I'm going to sit here for hours and just listen to Odyssey. Like, do I do that sometimes? Yes. But I'm just saying, like when we were little, it was like, okay, we listened to an episode, like moving on.
Unless you're going through like
The Green Ring
or
Conspiracy.
the Novacom series.
Yeah,
and
Andromeda.
It's, like,
it's so good.
happen?
It's so good.
But no, I
But
100%
somehow
agree.
somehow they pull that off to where
Yeah.
it's so enjoyable, but it's not addicting.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I think what you're saying is so true, because I think that requires a parent that has time to watch their kids and see how they respond, and a parent that is present. There are not a lot of parents that are very present with their kids, because we have screens. Us parents have screens, and like I'd be the first to admit, like it is so easy to just be distract yourself all day, especially when you're in a hard season of parenting. Like, but to be present and see what you're doing. Like I have to remind myself, Zadok is little, but he watches me all the time, and he's watching how I'm responding, and if I'm just distracting myself or if I'm dealing with stuff that's going on in my life. And I mean, he's seeing that. And so am I going to be present enough to see what he's feeling, what he's acting like, what his behavior is, and then how I can best like guide him and funnel all of his energy and his interests in a way that is imaginative and creative, rather than just distract him with stuff to get him out of my hair. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will admit, like recently, he's teething hardcore. And the other day, we sat and snuggled and watched VeggieTales. That's what we did, and it was fine. And we don't do that every day, but like, yeah. And the hamburger song was stuck in my head for hours, but that's fine.
Sorry, my brain's like going all over the place. The fruit of what comes out of it, like if a kid really likes watching shows, that's not inherently bad. It's not like, oh no, they're just addicted.
Yeah.
But if they don't do anything with that, then maybe they're just addicted. They're addicted to consuming entertainment versus like, wow, this is stirring like my imagination. Like for example, like I would watch something like How to Train Your Dragon, and then I would go out in the woods and build like an entire like Viking fort with like a rope bridge and like all this stuff out there, and run around and play like Vikings out there in the woods, because like it would just stir my imagination, and then I would like go out and do something
recreate
with
it.
Yeah. But if I just sat in front of the screen and then I was just like, all right, I'm just not going to do anything until I can watch another something, then it's like, okay, you're just addicted to consuming something. And so I feel like that's something to keep an eye on for both games, I mean,
again, being
like,
present as a parent, watching how it's
even
affecting
books.
your kids.
Like what if someone is just, all they do is like they're in books and then they do nothing with it. You know, they're not learning. It's not inspiring them. They're just living for the next, drama, the next story. Like that's not inherently better than watching a show and consuming that and doing nothing with it.
Yeah.
I think, and this actually ties well into something else I wanted to bring up before we kind of close this topic. And that's that we both really enjoyed White Collar. Like we got into White Collar. And
that's how I survived like
something,
36 to 39 weeks of pregnancy.
like that's not something that I would have ever seen myself watching, maybe like before or whatever. And there was definitely stuff in there that we were like skip because we were just like, this didn't need to be in here. Like, but one of the things that we've kind of consistently done with movies and things recently is that we'll talk about it afterwards, or we'll think about like, man, like why does that like connect with
It
us
sparked
right
so
now?
much conversation with us because
Yeah.
if you don't know what White Collar is, it's a crime show. It is probably the least bloody crime show
Oh, yeah.
that I've seen.
Oh,
It is
yeah.
not like bloody gory. Everyone's always shooting each other.
It's a lot of
But
intrigue.
it's a focused on a con artist. So it's very thought provoking, and the stories are very deep. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of detail that's like weaved in, and like every time you watch the show you catch on something else and you're like, wait a second, I did not catch that last time. So like we would talk afterwards like, wait, so I mean, yeah, it was very thought provoking. But yeah, I mean, you could watch it with like VidAngel or something, so you don't
Yeah.
have to skip stuff. But
That's something that I feel like didn't happen in my family. That like Focus on the Family always says this when the audio dramas, and I feel like this should be true for everything. Is that like, you know how they're always like, hey, this is a good episode to bring your family, or like they encourage like
Yeah.
the family to sit down and talk about it, or like whatever. And I feel like to some extent we did that with Adventures in Odyssey, but we never did that really with movies. And a
Yeah.
little bit, but I feel like that would have been so much more wholesome. Like, and also maybe would help identify when like something wasn't, like if we all talked about it and we're like, yep, there was nothing fruitful
Yeah.
from that, then it's like, all right, make an
I
adjustment.
feel like our family always sits and talks about the movie afterwards.
Really?
For the most part.
Well, that's something that your family has done really well with, and I've noticed that ever since like I've gotten to know your family, is that you guys will sit down and talk about stuff as a family. And I feel like our families kind of struggle with that throughout the years. We've had better moments and less better moments, but I do wish looking back that that's something we had done more consistently.
Do you think it's because you were all boys and we were mostly girls, and girls like to talk about everything?
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, we spent a lot of our teenage years like late into the night sitting up, either just us girls or with mom and dad talking about everything. And sometimes it was tearful, and there was attitudes and things that needed to be worked through. And like, I don't think my parents had all the answers or even did everything right, but I think one of the biggest things they did right was listening and letting us talk and not shutting us down. And that was huge.
Yeah.
And they welcomed, not always like did they love it, but they let us be honest with them even about their own parenting or how it was making us feel or like whatever. And I am so grateful to you, Mom and Dad. Love you. Shall we pivot to our
Yes.
our little
Welcome
ad
to
here?
the intermission. This is the the intermission. See what I did there. This is where we have our hashtag unsponsored section. Ah, excellent. The heat's
Sponsored,
coming back on.
unsponsored.
It's cold down
It's
here.
unsponsored, but we hope it's sponsored eventually because we drink enough of these that it should be sponsored.
Yes.
So
our,
here you go.
Our hashtag not sponsored product today is Zevia.
Zevia.
Yes.
When did we first learn about Zevia? I don't know. I think I found it at Kroger and I just brought it home and I was like, this might be good because it's sweetened with stevia. It is
I
basically.
I might have known about it before.
It's a
you.
newer thing though.
It is newer, but I think
and
my
let me
family
just
might have
say,
got it.
This came before Olipop. This came before Poppy. This came before all that jazzy jazz. And this is good. At least I think it came before that. Sweetened with
I'm not
stevia,
sure.
and they basically recreate every popular soda with stevia instead of sugar.
What are your top two?
Okay, this one is just killer. It's the ginger root beer. So good. So good. I feel like their copy of ginger ale is really good too.
It is, but
It's not as gingery as I wish it was though.
I really enjoy their copy of Pop. I forget what
Coke?
or Coke.
Cola?
Yeah, Coca-Cola
I think
product.
they call it cola. Yeah.
Cola. Yeah, that one is very good. I think I like that one and the root beer.
This
probably
one,
my
okay.
favorite.
So here's a little idea for you. So we love, if we buy ice cream, we get Rebel ice cream from like most grocery stores have it. So Rebel brand, get their vanilla get you some Zevia and make a root beer float, and you will be
Zero
singing
sugar.
our praises,
Yes.
baby.
Now, I will say, it is a good amount of stevia. If you're not used to stevia,
Yeah.
you might need to like work your way up.
Yeah.
These are fairly tame, but the ice cream and this together.
Oh, really? I think it's less intense when you put ice cream with it.
Maybe. Well, Rebel. Yeah, that's true. Well, recently we tried some homemade ice cream. I felt like that was a little bit intense, the combination of those two.
Yes,
but yeah,
I would
Rebel's
say
more
Zevia.
mild, yeah.
I would say Zevia is a pretty strong stevia flavor. If you're not used to stevia, when I first
Yeah,
tried it, I was
perhaps.
like, okay, that's sweet. Like, that's stevia. Like, I
Mhm.
taste it. Now, I love it. I hardly think about it, but that's
Yeah.
because we just only use stevia most of the time and honey, so.
I grew up we had stevia plants like in the yard, and so
Yeah.
like I mean I've tasted
Yeah, we
stevia
will
my
just-
whole life, so I'm pretty.
Yeah.
I don't
We
really
like
think about it as much.
the actual stevia people,
there is
not the
something-
weird powdered stuff that has dextrose and maltodextrin
Yeah.
and all that junk.
If there is one thing for you to accomplish health-wise this year, this is my public service announcement.
It's not coming from me, people.
Work your way from sugars to stevia and other like monk fruit, etc. Like
Lower glycemic
like
ones.
yeah, work your way that way, and it may not be easy at first, but like you will, like more than any other health thing out there, like you will feel so much better.
Yeah.
Like, and you'll also like the more that you're off sugar, and that's a big thing. One, if you don't like stevia at first, it may just be that like you need to be off sugar for a while, and then you'll actually enjoy it. So like just
or
go
just
off of-
gradually, like do something like even switching from pure white sugar to maple syrup.
That's
Like
a good start.
just do that,
It's a
and
good
then
start.
try coconut sugar, and then try honey, and then
Nothing has
try
made
stevia.
me feel significantly better, other than better water intake, than moving from a medium to a larger amount of sugar in my diet, because I was a big sugary person. I mean, I had like 8 caps at one point in my mouth when I was a kid.
What?
Yeah, something like that. It was a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 8. I think I had 2 on
Well,
the
you have
bottom,
a
2 on the
sweet
top.
tooth, baby.
I know. So I'm moving away from that to like just going off of sugar. I kind of did a sugar fast for a while, and I realized I feel so good. And also the more that you're off of sugar, you actually start to enjoy foods you didn't before, because like your palate kind of refines more and stuff. So
And then when you eat something that has like high fructose corn syrup or regular white sugar, it tastes so fake and weird, and you're like,
Yeah.
what the heck is this?
yeah, especially like I mean, you got to be off of it for a couple months or so, but then you'll taste something and you'll be like, oh, like it's so sweet, and you're like, how did I ever eat this before? So anyway,
That was your little
public service announcement. I'm off
That
my
wasn't
box.
very little, actually. That was like,
Well, yeah.
all right, guys, go buy Zevia. It's pretty cheap. I got a whole set of like 36 or 48 or something from a bent dent store for like $10. Okay, and they weren't even bented or dented. So
Yeah.
hey, I
They
mean,
taste good.
and they are good stuff. You can also get them at like Costco, Sam's Club. Get your
Yep.
Zevia, people.
Yeah. I think it is one of the cleanest ones out there, isn't it?
It has natural flavors in it, and people are gonna say
Oh,
that
does it?
natural flavors are a mystical thing that nobody quite knows what is in them.
Which is fair.
But you know what? It's not a battle I want to fight right now. So
Yeah.
there's,
All right.
there's that. Okay, my topic is journaling.
All right,
And we
let's
are
talk
at
about
like
that.
38 minutes, so we will not keep you for much longer. But
Well, I feel like there's a good amount to talk about here, but not like endless. I don't know. I guess maybe for you more. I feel like I have simpler thoughts on the topic, but
Yeah.
I
I'm just
actually
looking at this
did
picture of us behind you, and my hair looks like it's blonde.
in the
I'm
sun.
so confused. It
don't
just
know.
looks like I dyed it. I have
Oh,
never dyed
wow.
my hair blonde, but doesn't it look blonde? Should I go blonde? No, I do not
Interesting.
think so.
It might
I
just be
think
the
no.
sun. So
Sorry, squirrel.
I actually did. I don't know. I'm holding this because it's a journal. This I just used. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But I used to do a lot of journaling. It's actually something that my mom always tried to do with
This
us.
was my topic.
Well, it is, but I asked you what your thoughts
Oh,
were.
that's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
so you know,
I want to hear what you
I
have to
don't have a
say.
lot of things to say, so I'm just kind of
Right. So
saying
you
it.
should go first.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
because who knows how long I'm going to go on.
So my mom got all of us to journal like when we were little. Like it was like kind of more scrapbook style, like
That is
she would
awesome.
ask us our thought. Like the moment that we could kind of talk and think and stuff, she would ask us stuff and she would write it down. So we actually have journaled stuff
Aww.
like from before we could write or anything
That
like
is
that. It
so
is very cool. And
good.
they're really cool to go back and look through, and they've got, like a
Aww.
feather like in there from like or a cutout picture or whatever. So
Can I
my
just insert that William got two little like nature adventure journals for Zadok when he's a little older to do, and it's the cutest thing ever. He just has them like saved for Zadok to do
Yeah,
someday, and that is so cute to
I'm
me.
excited.
He's such a good daddy. Continue.
So yeah, that's something we did. Kind of like spiral binder books, pretty big size actually. And so we kind of did that for a
Aww.
while, and then we started to like kind of journal our own. And so we'd get
All of
little,
you boys did?
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
At least for a little while, we had smaller books. We'd write thoughts or stories or whatever, and we'd put little, stickers and things and stuff in them.
Yeah.
And then I don't really know what the rest of my brother's journeys with journaling after that point, but I know I kind of picked it up or put it down back and forth throughout the years. But then definitely in my, I would say from 15 to 20, I like wrote books. Like I,
Same.
or maybe closer to even like 16 or 17. Like I
Same.
just suddenly was like, I have stuff to write about. Like I have
Yeah.
thoughts, I have things, and I used it. Part of it, and this is kind of an interesting. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, or I don't know if I've told you this before, but initially I kind of used journaling almost as an accountability thing to myself in the sense
Mm.
that not about specifics, more about in general. Because
Mm.
if I had to write down that my life was boring, then I needed to do
Mm.
something,
Mhm.
And so it was almost like I was writing a story, and it was like, I have the choice, so to speak, to at least, I mean, I can't guide my future, like that's in God's hands, but I at least can make today interesting. Like I can, um,
Yeah.
I can choose to do something worth writing about,
Worth
kind of
writing
thing.
about, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but also tied into that was not just what I do, but like I would get so excited every time, and I actually kind of had a separate journal for this sometimes too, but I normally just did in my regular journal, and it was anything that God did, anything I saw God do, and I would just be
Mm.
like watching and waiting and praying and all this stuff, and so during the season, kind of 17 and onward, when I was really kind of having my own awakening, so to speak, and like realizing who God is and giving my life to Him, like I wrote so much,
Same.
and thoughts, dreams, a lot of it mostly like even just writing to God, just prayers to God, and a lot of that,
I did that a lot too.
yeah,
It helped me to write out my prayers more than pray them
right.
out
And I
loud or
feel
in
like
my
I
head.
thought about them more and
Right.
things too, and I mean I did both, but
Did you feel like as you wrote things out, you would figure things out? Like as you wrote them out, it was like thoughts could sort and like
yeah,
you would leave your journal being like, "Oh, okay. I feel better.
yes,
I feel
yes,
like I'm I've been organized.
mm-hmm,
My brain has been organized."
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then anytime like something really awesome would happen, I would write till my hand cramped. Like I would want to write every single detail
Aww.
because it was so like neat. Um, and and more conversations on that another time. But there was different stuff, and then you had some of the in the later part of my journals. There were some of the more uh, romantic interests, so to speak, and figuring that out.
Interests.
Well, there was different. Well, because I don't know, and it's like, oh, is this the one? Like,
Oh,
and
my
wondering,
journals
and
were full of that
yeah,
too. But
and
mine are a lot more dramatic.
well, I don't know. Mine have some dramatic moments, but that kind of progressed on as I grew in the Lord and such, um, and and not just that, but also just friends and interests and things that were going on. Like I would write tons of stuff about that, And kind of what happened, if you were to look at my journals, there would kind of be an exponential curve. And every time like new exciting things are happening, it was like I was writing more and more and more and more as I was growing in the Lord. And then there's this point where I just don't write in my journals anymore. And that's pretty much when Annie came along because there was just so much to write and so many thoughts and so many things that it was like I can't put this down.
Hey,
Like I
we couldn't help
literally
that our love story is the best one that's ever
yeah.
been written. I mean, we can't help that.
There was so much, and like I think some of it is captured digitally because I was at least able to like talk into the phone and like it would transcribe.
A lot of our relationship is in voice
Oh, that
messages
too. But like
because we were long
I had
distance.
kind of a digital journal thing that I did capture some stuff in a little bit, and photos. Remember, I
Okay.
had that like 1 second a day thing, and I would put journal entries in too. And so,
I always
yeah.
thought that it was like a very attractive thing to me in a guy if he journaled because I felt like it meant that he cared about what was going on inside and he
Mm,
wasn't just stuffing a bunch of stuff down and not thinking about it or talking about it.
yeah.
And I just appreciated that a lot. So when I found out that you were a journaler, I was
Hmm.
like, extra brownie points, which you already
And
had so many
well,
brownie
and
points at that
I
point. I was like,
generally my journaling was more story driven, and
mine
I
too.
think that's
Yeah.
why at one point,
Like,
well,
did you
but
envision yourself as like the main character and you were like writing?
no, well,
Okay, because
kind
I
of.
did.
It was, yeah, kind of.
And that totally goes into what we were talking about earlier is we listen to Little Women by Focus on the Family, and I just wanted to write my journal like Meg and not Meg,
Yeah,
like Joe wrote her
yeah, that's
journal.
fair.
And so I'm like 9 years old and I'm like, I'm gonna be like Joe writing her journal. Like I'm the main character here and I'm
I
gonna write
I
it.
wrote mine like it was a book for somebody who would one day read it, kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I think where my desire or interest in it started was when my growing up in the mornings, every time I woke up, mom was out there on the couch with her Bible and her journal.
Mm,
And she has beautiful handwriting. She has beautiful journals. Like
mm,
her journals are just beautiful. And it's a lot of devotional journaling and journaling what her thoughts were on scripture and prayers. And I think originally when she was younger, she did like daily life journaling, but
mm.
most of it was what she was learning with God. And I shout out to you, mom. That had a big impression on me. And I wanted to be just like mom, of course. Every little girl wants to be just like mom. So I think that was probably where it started. And then also I had a teacher in elementary school who bought us journals and had us journal every day. And we called
Hmm.
it story time, but I think it was story time where she would give us like 15 minutes or something and we would have to sit and write about what happened that day in school.
Okay. Huh.
And so that is like one of my first journals. And then I just went from there. I started with writing my thoughts about God, and I still have those journals of like me discovering who God is. And I would be up in the morning.
Mm.
But my poor mom had to sacrifice her being alone in the morning because I wanted to be like mom. So I got up early with mom, and I wanted to sit on the couch with mom and have my devotional time with mom. Now that I'm a mom, I'm like, oh, poor mom. Anyway, but yeah, so those are some of my first journals. But then through teenage years, that is how I survived,
Hmm.
was journaling.
Well,
So
something
much
that
stuff happened in my teenage years that I
yeah.
like so many of my entries are like I'm confused, I'm depressed, I don't understand. I like so many of my I did not realize the darkness of those journals until now when I'm going back through them. But what were you gonna say?
Well, I was going to say something that you do with journaling that I used to do to some extent, but like you've kind of carried on because we kind of both sort of stopped writing detailed, long, like narrative journaling when we were
Yeah.
like talking. Like
We couldn't keep up
we
with
couldn't
it.
keep up a lot of
Yeah.
things. And just the thoughts, the feelings, the stuff like and we were constantly talking to each other and working through things and stuff.
Yeah.
And so like I mean, we have a combined journal so to speak in our messages.
We messaged on Telegram. You know what we can do though? If you get the pro version of Telegram, you can get all your audios transcribed into like written
You
out
can.
words, and then we could just copy paste them
It's
into a
so
document,
much though. My
and then we
goodness.
could print it. We'd have like a book of
It's
all of
very
our.
true. And it would be good. It's not just oshy-gushy stuff. It's
It's literally
actually
there's
full
like
of so much scripture and like
we were like
just working through our
yeah.
different pasts and thoughts
We
and
were like on
feelings.
fire. We were like
was
preach
good.
to each other for like
Yes.
hours a day.
Yeah. It was good. My
So
goodness.
I guess for me, the teenage, like I said, that was when journaling was huge for me, and I had a lot of, like I said, misunderstand. I did not understand a lot of stuff that was going on. I was lonely. Like I had friends, but I don't know. I think I felt misunderstood or something. And I would, and like some of the entries I was reading to you, like it was like I just want somebody to listen, or I just want
Yeah.
somebody to
Yeah,
take
I have
time.
similar entries.
And I mean, I was in a lot of dark places that I didn't tell people about, and that's just probably partly my personality. Like I stuffed things a lot, and I didn't want to share about them to anybody, and I'm not sure why. So journaling was like my who I shared with. My journal was almost like a person to me. That's like who I shared with. And I think journaling did save me in a lot of ways because I was able to tell someone, in air quotes, what was going on.
It is
And
really good to get stuff out and not internalize
yes,
them.
bringing stuff out into the light, it can't stay dark anymore. And so I would look at the words I just wrote on the page and be like, that's not good. Like, we need to deal with this, you know? And so, yeah. And then other like big moments in my life, like when we were moving and we had no clue where we were moving to, and we didn't know what house we were going to live in until like 2 days before we moved into it, or a day. And I was packing up the entire house with not knowing where we were going to go. I journaled a ton, and it was mostly to just keep my mind in a good place. It was reminding myself of truth. It was like, and so that's kind of what journaling turned into for me, was like, here's where I'm going to get my thoughts in line. Here's where I'm going to whip them into shape, you know?
Yeah.
And so now I'm writing, I'm calling it a book. I don't know how big it's going to be. It started off as like a little PDF, and now I'm not sure because it's kind of getting, yeah, it might be a little longer, but and I've shared about this on my Instagram and stuff, but like I'm going back and reading those journals and finding where I was, and kind of, and I'm telling my story, my testimony, and for the first time I've actually been able to look back at the girl that wrote those entries, because I ain't the same girl, baby. Anyway, so I'm finally able to look back at the girl that wrote those entries and not be embarrassed of her, and not be annoyed and frustrated with her, and even just dislike her. And like I finally am able to look back, and I just have so much gratitude of where I'm at now, and how much God's done and how far he's brought me.
Yeah.
And that is the first time. So I am so excited about that, because that means healing, that means deliverance has happened, that means growth has happened, and I am just so grateful for that. So I guess I would encourage everyone to journal, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's like a few sentences a day or whether it's pages and pages. Like, you will just the aspect of looking back later and seeing what God's done
Hey, and
is
if
huge.
if words feel like too much, I completely understand that, because I had a period of time where, and you would remember this, like I couldn't get words out, and so I would just draw pictures. Do you remember that? Like in college, I would just draw what I was feeling and thinking into a picture.
I did that a couple times.
Yeah, because sometimes it's just like I don't have the words to describe what I'm
Yeah.
feeling or what I'm thinking or what I'm working through. I definitely did that, and then more recently, and that's why I was holding this up earlier. This journal is like the catch-all, like thoughts, feelings, things, future, and I've kind of transitioned to where like I don't have a regular journaling, because I have a pretty long commute to work, and that's kind of my journaling time. Like I just talk to God and think through things and stuff, and sometimes I'll write things down at hindsight, but like that's sort of my time to kind of work through feelings and stuff.
Yeah.
I normally am more of a verbal processor, so I'll just kind of talk through it, and kind of similar to how you write through things.
Yeah.
But then as far as journaling, It's more of when I just need to see it written on a page, and that's kind of what this has become. Like, and this thing is like abstract. It's all over the place. It's got thoughts and feelings, things about the future and ideas, and um, it's got things about the podcast. It's got things about our family and what we want to do, and it's just sort of the spot that I can always go to and be like, all right, well, at least it's in one spot. Like my little thoughts and my things, can write it right there and know it's there.
How do you feel when you look back at your journals when you were like 15, 16? What does it bring up in you?
I haven't looked back at them in the last like 2 years or so.
Okay.
But I know before that, like I actually had started going through and transcribing everything to a Word document because I wanted it digital, and because I wanted to go back and put in some, like, so I'd have like text, and then I'd have highlighted text that was like my added things, like, hey, this is what was going on during this time, to give more context. And that, so when I was going through and kind of doing that, there was definitely a lot of like, wow, I see what God was doing, like, and a lot of thankfulness, like you were saying, and very much like, wow, that's not who I am anymore. And
That's good because I couldn't do that for a long time.
Yeah.
I just did not like that person. I did not like her at all. And I thought she was just dramatic and annoying and embarrassing. And I just couldn't.
I didn't
I did
really-
not have any grace with myself, which is
I didn't really start journaling though until after I had kind of
healed from that.
healed
maybe.
from
Okay,
that.
yeah.
So, I mean, I had like journaling ish before that, is a little bit.
Yeah.
But most of it was more, or at least going through the process of that healing.
Yeah.
Like, is kind of when I started journaling. And so I don't have a lot of really dark journals, but here and there, like, there's stuff.
Yeah.
In some of the older
Teenagers
ones. For
are
sure.
going through a lot, people. So I know everyone's like, teenagers are so annoying. I can't stand them. Like, they are the most frustrating people ever, and they're so dumb, and they're so shallow. They're going through a lot. And I have teenage little sisters. Well, one is, the other one is almost. And I just recently have had a new just interest in them, I guess. And since literally just recently, since I've been going through these journals, when I was her age, my younger sister, like, there was so much going on in my mind, and it came out in actions that I wasn't even proud of at the time. But there was so much going on inside that, like, it just boiled over into actions that aren't nice, that are annoying and frustrating to people. But I feel like if we can start listening to teenagers, actually listening to them, instead of brushing them off and telling them they're annoying and
help them to process.
help them
and
just
think through.
listen. Like, so often we just want to tell teenagers how they should be doing, what they should be feeling, and you need to just get over it and act like an adult. And then, like, it's like there is so much
It's
going
the whole
on
like
there.
you need to grow up mentality.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things about like what I'm passionate about Wibbly. I mean, we've talked about the name
We
before,
have?
right? We have.
Well, anyway,
a
it's
little
called Wibbly.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I don't know how much detail we came beyond that, but point is,
It's okay. Yeah.
yeah, because I posted on my Instagram.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So anyway, the thing we want to do with kids and all of that, which is still kind of shaping, one of the passions for that for me is that like transitional, adolescent age when it's like, okay, so we want them to grow up, but what does that look like? How do we help them process from being like, imaginative, being a kid and going through, changes and stepping into responsibility in a way that they don't just kind of get run over, like so many teenagers out there. Like, how do we let them step into that in a way where they're confident and about themselves, about who they are? Like, instead of the whole, like, they have to almost, like, teenagers go through that phase where they almost have to, like, let go of everything that they were before as a kid because somehow that's not cool. And, like, they have to step into this, like, sad, like, adult life instead of just, like, no, like, yes, there's adult responsibilities and stuff, but especially as Christians, like, taking that childlike faith that we had before and breathing life into that and then using that to step into our adult life where we can we can still be big kids, so to speak, because we're trusting in the Father like every day. There's no reason that we need
We
to be
literally are
in this like
kids.
sad adult, like everything's horrible life. Like, that's not true. And there's no reason that we need to like stuff down who we are, like the
We
gifts, the
need to
passions.
become more. We need to become more childlike.
What is the name of that art? We need to shout that out.
John Pantana. John
Oh my goodness,
Pantana.
we found these
He
songs
is
recently.
awesome.
So fun. So
Let me
fun.
find him.
I don't know
John-
if we can play it, though.
No, I won't play
Yeah.
it, but here we go. John Mark Pantana.
Yes.
He's so good.
Yes.
Guys. Anyway, he has a song called Childlike that's really good.
Mm.
But I love what you're saying because I think pretty much every teenager feels misunderstood and not heard and lonely and depressed. Not every teenager, but a very large majority. I did, and I had a loving family and friends and like
Hey, even if you have a really awesome friend group and an amazing family, you still have to walk through that transition.
change. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Um,
So I guess like don't brush off your teenagers and be annoyed with them. And like let's start treating them like who we know they are and who they can be rather than what they're acting like. Because what they're acting like is coming from what's going on inside, which is not knowing what's going on. Like you don't have a clue what's happening. Your body's changing, your likes and dislikes are changing. You suddenly are like aware of boys of girls, and you're like, what is going on? And like you're suddenly not a kid anymore, and but you're not an adult either, and so
you
you're like this
need
tadpole.
truth more than you ever needed it before.
Yes.
And especially nowadays, because in the past, I feel like to some extent, parents almost kind of like brushed off because it's like life is coming, whether they like it or not. Like they're gonna have to learn, you know.
Like buck up,
But
baby.
nowadays, like you have all these escapes, you know. Like you have, like I mean, we just watched The Forge, and you have like the main character kid in there. Like he's an adult, but he's just like he's basically a child still. Like he just escapes to his
just
games and his
yeah.
stuff, you know. And like again, and that's a whole other side thing, but kind of with videos and things we were talking about earlier, like if they're being used as an escape because they can be used that way, like it's not good. And I feel like maybe in the past it's like you didn't have those escapes, maybe there was other things, but it's like to some extent you just kind of life came and then you had to like, you know, like you were saying, just buck up and get on board, and you learned.
It wasn't very nice, and you just wanted to distract yourself from it, and so like you
but
just
nowadays
game and
you
watch movies.
Nowadays you have that, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Like maybe in the past, like you didn't, like you just had to start working on the farm or going to work or whatever
and
it
like
was. And
we're not saying we have figured out how to parent teenagers, because obviously our child is 6 months and we have not dealt with a teenager. I think we're
Nope.
speaking from the point of us looking back at our teenage selves
Yes.
and what we wished we would have had. And the reason we're even talking about this is because of journaling, and we did a lot of journaling as teenagers, and looking back on it now, we're realizing things. And so we're just sharing what we're realizing. But
which I feel like, that being said, then, like the key thing there is that we found truth.
yeah.
Like we didn't have the perfect teenage thing. Like we're very
No.
thankful. There's a lot of stuff to look back and be thankful for, but like we found Christ. Like we found a true relationship with God,
Yeah.
and that changed everything.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter that there was brokenness and stuff in the past, because we were transformed through him. And so ultimately, like even though we are like have not parented a teenager, what we do know is that they need Christ. They
Yeah.
need our example of Christ. They need truth, and they need love.
They need to be listened to.
Yeah, that's part
Even
of love.
if it's just a bunch of hogwash and you know it, don't tell them that. Just listen. Just listen to them and let them know that you're a safe place for them to just talk about anything and everything. And
Because that's how the Father is. Like,
Yeah.
we can go to him and talk to him about anything.
he's
anything
not
and
like, well,
everything.
that's stupid. Why are you thinking that? That's dumb. No, he's like, just let me sit with you and listen.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's such a good point, honey. So there's all of that.
Yep.
I feel like that was good even for me to talk through and think through and stuff. And we
Mhm.
love, if there's teenagers watching, like, we love you guys, and know that you are loved, and that you can share what's going on, and it's okay. And what you're feeling, a lot of us have been there. You're not alone. And there's a lot of feelings, a lot of things there. And just know that even if maybe you feel misunderstood by even your parents or those closest to you, like, God is a perfect father, and you are
Mhm.
allowed to go sit with him and just talk to him about anything and everything with no judgment, and just love, and just climb up on his lap and tell him all about it. So, and we all need to be that way, but I'm just saying, I
Mhm.
wish I would have done that even more in my teenage years. um, I did not understand God as my father very well in my teenage years, but that's a whole other story for another time.
Yeah.
And that's in my book. So if you want to know that story, you can get my book.
Hashtag untitled book coming at some point. Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
All right. Would you like to outro us?
Okay, remember that. Oh, sorry. This has been the InterCellar POD. If you didn't know what you were listening to, thanks for joining us in our cellar with our fall leaves and jazz. Remember, there is not a shadow too deep, nor stronghold too great, that his light cannot find you, and he will bear you up on eagle's wings if you will only hope and trust in him. I feel like I need to say amen.
Oh, man.
Thanks for being here, guys. We love you.
Bye.
Bye.